Hi everyone, welcome to the second session in the SEN show series today. My name's Frances Hume, I'm the marketing manager for the TES SEN show, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Julia Clouter, Head of Education at Scanning Pens, and Erica Smith, EdTech Demonstrator School Lead for Highfurlong School and Assistive Technology Practitioner for the Department for Education's EdTech Demonstrator Schools programme. So before I hand over to our two amazing hosts, I'm just going to run through a couple of housekeeping points here. So today's webinar is being recorded. You're going to receive an email with all of the information on how to access the recording, including any useful links. I know we've got some amazing top tips coming up as well, and any kind of further information about how to get in touch with Julia and Erica. So keep an eye out in your inbox early next week for that email with all of the information in there. I can see lots of you are getting involved with the chat already. Hello, good morning. Thank you for getting involved. Please do feel free to put all of your comments in there. If you have any questions, we'll have time at the end to ask your questions to Julia and Erica. Please do pop them in the Q&A and we will get to those at the end. We do also have some very exciting polls coming up today. So you should see at regular intervals some polls popping up onto your screen. Just select your answer, and then to view the results from the polls, if you just click on the polls section of the chat box on the right hand side there, you should be able to see all of the answers. And I'd just like to take a moment to say a huge thank you to the series sponsor, Scanning Pens. They're the first sponsor of the SEN show series. They've been a massive supporter of the TES SEN show for years now. So we're so happy to be supported by them on this new kind of digital encounter. So Scanning Pens are an assistive tech company who create portable scanners with text-to-speech technology to support weak readers of all ages. And I'm sure Julia will give you much more information on that later. But they are offering a 30-day free trial for all attendees of the webinars, which is amazing. I really encourage you to get in on that. You can follow the link in the slides. You'll receive all of the slides at the next week, so don't worry about scribbling it all down just now, but please do take advantage of that. So I am very happy now to hand over to Julia and Erica for a discussion exploring approaches to supporting SEN children and the current challenges facing schools. Over to you.
Thank you, Frances. Lovely introduction. Hello, everybody who in the chat box. If you know us and love us, say hello. It's really encouraging to see you popping up in the box there, and we know you're there. And we're really excited to be chatting with you today. So, Erica, I think you ought to introduce yourself a little more.
Hi everybody, so I am Erica Smith, and Julia and Frances and I were just saying about how friendly everybody is who's kind of joined the SEN series, and just looking at the chat box, it's really reassuring. So thank you so much for your comments, and feel free to engage throughout. We welcome your comments and feedback throughout the presentation. So as I mentioned, I work at Highfurlong School in Blackpool. We are a special school. We are a through school with also nursery provision, so we take children from 2 to 19. I have been in special education for 18 years now. I kind of first got into it because my sister has sensory processing, so I had that kind of personal interest. And for the last 12 months, I've been working both at Highfurlong and split my time between the local authority, our advisory teaching team. So it's been really useful for me to see how we can best support our pupils both in special school and actually those pupils with SEN in mainstream as well. And I am the Demonstrator School Lead for Highfurlong, sorry. And really, I'm just passionate about using technology to not only support teaching and learning, but to support communication and removing the barriers. And technology really gives us the tools to do that, which is how I met Julia.
That's right. I'm Head of Education for Scanning Pens, and I met Erica because I was providing some training on scanning pens and was looking at the Demonstrator Schools program and trying to see how Scanning Pens could support those demonstrator schools with additional training, so it would make it easy for them to go on and deliver those training sessions. So that's me, Head of Education for Scanning Pens. I'm also an experienced Senko and SPLD teacher, worked in mainstream and SEN settings, and I'm also a presenter and do lots of work with Succeed with Dyslexia, which is a goodwill organisation working towards becoming a global network that shares dyslexia stories. I was one of the teachers who was lucky enough through the Rose Review to do some dyslexia training more than 10 years ago, and dyslexia has been one of my passions throughout my career in supporting those learners. So that's just a bit about me. I think really we ought to talk now about the Demonstrator Schools programme, because you may not know about it, and I'd really love to know, Erica, how did the Demonstrator Schools programme start?
Well, we were very interested when we heard about the Demonstrator School programme last October, because as a school we were already doing a lot of the requirements, so we were already supporting our local community, and how we kind of got started with that was maybe some 15 years ago. We'd started with a service level agreement from the A Centre in Oldham, and through that we did our training. We learned from them. They would do assessments. They would come and support our real complex learners with communication devices and ed tech for accessing the computer. And we moved to become a bit of a spoke service under their hub from 2015, and we actually launched our external service called the CAT team, which is the Highfurlong Communication Aid and Assistive Technology team. And we provide support within our local community and within Lancashire, really, and around assessments for students that have got alternative means of communication, if they've got specialist access requirements. I have an amazing specialist speech and language therapist, Sarah Alderman, who works with me within that team, and we are hosted on our local office, so schools can refer in, NHS therapists can refer in and kind of support those learners at that specialist level. So we were already doing quite a lot of the requirements. So when we heard about the Demonstrator School programme, we were really keen to be involved, and our head teacher, Neil Oldham, was asked to speak last May at the House of Lords around a bit of a case study as a demonstrator school. So, and it kind of snowballed quite quickly from there, really.
So your school had the specialist SEN support skills that put you in a very good position, and you had to write a bid to become a demonstrator school and demonstrate very clearly that you were already able to produce documentation, training support, and were already doing an awful lot of work with your teams. And as I understand it, there are only 1 or 2 SEN specialist demonstrator schools. Yeah. So wow. Really fantastic to have the opportunity at the TSN show to talk with you, Erica, because I know there will be lots of SEN teachers out there who are thinking, how do I get this additional support and what can Erica help us with? So hopefully we're in the right place at the right time, as we're going to talk about a little bit of government guidance that's important to all of us, that's hot off the press news in a minute. Stay tuned for that. So you're part of a consortium, Erica. Can you paint us a picture of that consortium and tell us about what it looks like?
Yeah, so originally, our original plan last October, so we're talking, I can't believe it's 12 months ago now, but our plan was that we would complete an application to be a demonstrator school on our own, but some of the criteria, as a special school, we didn't hold the data to meet the requirements. So we were directed from the A Centre, who are always really supportive of us and our work, and they pointed us towards Hambleton and Ribblesdale. So Hambleton is a mainstream primary, and Ribblesdale is a mainstream high school, and we all offer very different advice and support. So Hambleton, they specialise in Google Classrooms and Google Meet, and they use a lot of iPads for learning. Ribblesdale High are a Microsoft teaching school, and then of course we bring that expertise in terms of alternative communication, so the AAC and the assistive technology. And actually all 3 schools already had EdTech woven into the fabric of their school offer. So we offer that real diverse makeup, and we can really support all phases, primary, secondary, nursery, post-16, SEN. And the beauty of being referred into our consortium is if you are referred to me because you might be a special school, if you are a special school that needs support around Microsoft Teams, you have the option to be supported by myself and Ribblesdale. At the moment, myself and Hambleton have worked with a special school because they are getting set up with Google Classroom. So you've almost got the best of both worlds because you're open to all 3 of us. And obviously we all bring something very different to the table. And I think our feedback has been that because we are not, we're not suppliers, we are schools using it, and we have the contact, so we can put you in touch with, people that can provide the right resources and the right ed tech and the trials, like yourself today at Scanning Pens. But actually, we are doing it day in, day out, and we have done it before the Demonstrator School project, and we will do it after the project because we see it as very vital to our learning offer. And I think because we are in school, we're able to be responsive to the needs and the demands in schools, given the current climate, because it's so different. I mean, I don't think anyone could have predicted how this last 6 months could have rolled out. If you want a little bit more, sorry, Julia, just to say that if you want more information on our consortium, our website is on the bottom of the screen.
Sorry to cut in, Erica.
Right.
It was just such an important point that you were making about the change of the educational landscape, and SEN teachers are facing problems that they've never had before, and a lot of it is around how do we manage with new EdTech tools to support the teaching that we would have done one-to-one and in close support with our learners.
Absolutely.
And so now we've had a drive towards EdTech over the last 4 or 5 years, but we've got an accelerated pace now where we understand that EdTech is absolutely what we need to investigate in order to deliver our education services to our young people and do it well. So at the start of the demonstrator program, am I right in thinking that a program was in place to deploy knowledge about those EdTech tools to schools, and then those schools would receive that support, and then COVID happened and everything shifted? What happened, Erica?
So we had what we thought was quite a robust plan and proposal to take to the DFE, but then we originally planned to deliver face-to-face seminars, different groups of schools based on different areas of need. We would be focusing on specific areas of learning, and given the nature of the consortium, we would have done some joint delivery in physical seminars, around, supporting literacy. And I might have joined up with Hambleton to use tech to support literacy. And because of joining within our consortium, we would have reached that wider audience and really offer some inclusion for all through the demonstrator program. So we wanted to kind of raise awareness not only of the technology itself, but the pedagogy around why we're using assistive technology and the full function and how it can support all our learners. One of our plans was to hold a physical market stall, so that some of our schools could make those links with the different suppliers and have the opportunity to try before you buy, because obviously some of the technology is quite expensive. So we would always offer, where possible, the chance to try some of those devices. And for me, I was very conscious to demonstrate how technology can unlock a learner's potential and pupil voice. So, using something like a scanning pen, a student can be independent, and rather than having that reader there for them all the time, it just promotes that independence where possible. It's something that can be taken home so they can do that continuous learning at home. And it's quite an easy resource to implement, but it makes a big difference. So it's not all it's not something that it's going to take you 6 months to learn how to use. With a little bit of CPD and familiarizing yourself with it, it's something that you can be rolling out to your students quite quickly.
And I think that's a real great win for the Demonstrator School program. But what happened, I believe, was COVID, and then you were scrabbling to get everybody onto Teams and Google platforms, and the focus kind of shifted just to get everybody ready for working from home and learning from home. And I know that was a big demand, that you were set up to do this amazing piece of work, and then you had to rapidly shift your focus. But I understand now that the work that you're doing is bringing the focus back to the ed tech and the independent learning support solutions, in addition to the big picture work as well. So you're doing a hugely valuable piece of work for the Demonstrator Schools program. So crucial that people get this information, because I think at the centre of the conversation now for teachers, there is this pressing need to embrace the new technology, the platforms, the assistive tech, and we have lots of teachers who are maybe not so familiar with using that tech and are feeling de-skilled and anxious about what they need to do to support their learners. So what do you think is the biggest challenge for SEN teachers right now?
I think there's been a lot of concern and a bit of panic around how to offer remote learning to those learners with complex needs. And actually, the misconception that remote learning means they've got to be live, 4 or 5 hours a day. I think that's not how we would teach in school. And there is some confusion about what a remote learning offer for complex and higher needs looks like. I think there's lots of teachers who, especially teachers of SEN, who have got that great pedagogical knowledge, and they understand the different learning styles and the requirements of their learners. And they have got the content, we've got lots of teachers who've got real content in subject-specific areas, but then maybe they are not as confident in using technology. And then at the other end, we've got teachers who are really confident with technology, but actually we need to remember that this TPACS framework in the centre is where you bring all three aspects together, and that is where our children get a really enhanced and meaningful learning experience. So it's about respecting the fact that everybody has got something to bring to the table. So almost overnight there was this panic, and we had to change our whole programme, because it was about, we need to support teachers now, and how do we get that knowledge that we were going to share over maybe a 12-month cycle, how do we get that to teachers now, so that they realise, because I'm pretty sure that no teacher got into teaching who could have imagined that this is how they would be delivering and how they would be engaging with their pupils. So it was really to support the confidence, because it was having a massive effect on teachers' emotional and mental health, because this is just a very unnatural way of teaching your children, especially if you're in a special school. I mean, it's very difficult. So we've really supported with webinars about what a remote learning offer looks like. And actually, for those staff that are maybe not as confident in using the technology, the webinars are there to refer back to at their own time. It doesn't matter if they look back at it 10 times. They don't have to worry about feeling stupid or asking too many questions. They've got that support and can work through it at their own pace.
Let's launch our poll. I would love to know what you have found. So if you take part in our poll, the first question is, and you'll see it in the chat box at the top, you'll see the poll is launched there. And the question is, how did you feel when you realised you needed to teach remotely? And 7 months on, are you equipped to remotely teach if required to? So please take part in our poll, and we'll see how your experience has been. Okay, while you're taking part in that poll, and hopefully that's launched and you're able to get in there and give your answers, because I think we can, I've been told it's very exciting, we can see the data, who's answering what question. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. There we are. Oh, fantastic.
So while everyone's doing their polling, we could give it a bit of an idea of the kind of webinars we've done. So over the summer term, it was a case of, we had a real flurry of webinars. It felt like we were doing maybe sometimes 2 and 3 a week, because we were conscious that we had education staff at home desperate to be doing something and really wanted to support them as soon as possible. So some of the things that are on our website and YouTube channel, which is at the bottom, so that they're free to kind of go back and refer to as many times as you want. Getting started with Microsoft Teams and using Teams for teaching and learning. So they were led by the guys at Ribblesdale. We've done joint webinars on introduction to kind of live and those pre-recorded lessons, because at the very beginning as well, it was some teachers were really keen to get going with it. Other teachers felt that they were happy to send content out, but they felt more comfortable doing it pre-recorded. So it's about responding to the needs of your staff and the comfort and the confidence of your staff as well. Something really important, obviously, we've got all our school policies on safeguarding and the use of ICT and all those kind of things. So we did one around ensuring our learners are safe while accessing remote content, actually how to safeguard yourself as a learner, the expectation from parents when sitting in on remote lessons. Hambleton did some great webinars on getting started with Google Classroom and how to set work on Google Classroom. Still got lots of inquiries coming in on how to set up the classes, because obviously I'm sure at some point we'll all be on maybe a bit of a bubble learning from home or something. I delivered how to get started with assistive technology and alternative communication, because lots of staff immediately were quite open and forthcoming, going, I need to develop my own skills on this because I can't communicate with my class or my pupils as confidently because I've not got a speech and language therapist, so I've not got my TA next to me or their one-to-one. So we did some webinars around that, and then Sarah's done some great ones on using different symbol software to kind of create those communication books. So teachers were already planning for September, and I inputted on the preparing for September one about how to incorporate technology into a recovery curriculum. So we used a recovery curriculum when we first started back after the holidays, and actually we wouldn't have been able to offer that without technology woven into it.
And looking at the polls, so I'm just looking at the data here, Erica, and it's very revealing. I think that we are doing well. We have got probably about 40% of people viewing saying that they were equipped or really feeling well prepared, but that still leaves actually 60% of you who feel that you do need more support or feeling very unskilled, actually about 11% of you. And this is where the Demonstrator School can support you, where Erica's resources can support you. I'd fully encourage you to engage with this program and pop over to those links that are going to be provided, because you'll be able to pick up on the training that you need. And then the second part of the poll was 7 months on, are you equipped to remotely teach if required to? And 60% of you are saying not adequately. 40% are saying yes, you can. So there is a mixed picture. And I know, Eric, thumbs up.
Well done.
That's the case, yeah. But all those supporting resources are actually in place and can be accessed, and so please feel confident that you're not out there without a support, what's the word, a safety net. That's it. There is a safety net for you through the Demonstrator Schools program. So how can you request support? There's another little poll here. Let's see if I can launch a new poll.
So while Julia's launching our poll, how you can request support, the LGFL and the Demonstrator School site is at the end, and as Julia's mentioned, Frances is very kindly going to send out all the links that we refer to throughout the presentation. She's going to send those out early next week, so you can, for those of you that aren't feeling supported, please request support from the Demonstrator School and you will be signposted to the most appropriate. There is a form to fill out. I think it's a Google Forms to fill out that actually, and be honest, you know, it can be as wordy as you want it to be really specific in the kind of support, and then the guys at LGFL will signpost you to the most appropriate school to help you. And the kind of things that we can support with are direct support. You know, it might be that you need us at the end of a Teams call, at the end of the phone, content emailing. We've obviously got quite a vast catalogue of webinars and pre-recorded content, so there's kind of short, quick win videos on how to set up. So I'm thinking of the ones that I've done, how to set up a quick box, use it to make a computer switch accessible, how to use a PowerLink box. The guys have done how to sort things out on Google Classroom. You know, really how to set up classes, for example, on Google Classroom. Really short things that aren't going to they're not very time consuming. You can look at them in your own time. So we create these kind of short-term action plans, and then we might look. So we're very conscious to be responsive to the needs and the demands that are in schools, because we realise how difficult it is in schools. So we might say, right, well, for the first half term, we want to look at this. So your staff might go away and have a look at these webinars. Then we might create, actually, by the end of next term, we want to look at this. And then the plan is that we would help a school create their own EdTech strategy for the future. So it's responding to the needs, the immediate needs and demands, but then looking further, because actually, I think if the last 6 months have taught us anything, is that technology is not going anywhere. So it's about really putting those plans in place so that it's in every aspect of your curriculum offer, really.
Erica, 3% of people, sorry, 4% of people polled have said that they were not aware. Sorry, they were. 3% have said, 4% have said they were aware of the.
So I've just lost Julie for a second. So actually, if you are unaware of our service, please do register. Check out our websites and our YouTube channels. What I've got here is a case study of, sorry, let's make it full screen, a case study of the kind of support that I have offered to schools. So I was working with a special school in Manchester, and their challenge was that they had maybe 1 or 2 staff responsible for using technology to support teaching and learning and communication. And this is something that you find quite commonly, that it might rest on 1 or 2 people that are interested, but then there's quite a wide discrepancy with the skill set of the rest of the whole the school as a whole, and they needed support around kind of the basic digital competencies. So the first thing we did was support them getting set up with a Teams as a platform, because they really needed to be able to engage with their students and with their staff. And then it was about developing the staff skills as a whole. So there was a need for all staff to take some responsibility around, and that is their long-term vision as a school. So what we did was we supported the teacher to create a whole staff audit and kind of baseline where everybody was. And then from there, we directed them to certain webinars. And then from there, some of them who needed kind of those basic competencies would be looking at those quick win videos, some things such as how to download photographs from an iPad onto the computer, how to operate a PowerLink box. And then now they are working through their pathways based on to kind of factor into their CPD. And we have, at the moment, they are quite comfortable with how we're doing things. So we have got half-termly check-ins with them. And then the next focus, really, as I mentioned before, is them to implement that EdTech vision for the school.
Erica?
I can hear you. She's back.
Okay.
We just kept going without you. We knew you'd come back to us. So I just talked about really the challenges that I've had that have been expressed to me from one of the case studies of a school I supported in Manchester. And I think the feedback was, because their school was a very similar setup to ours, they felt, the lady who I've been working with, she was very honest, and she felt very comfortable in being honest about where she was and where she wanted to go, and we could kind of relate to each other because we were very similar settings. So I think that, and she's been very kind to give some really great feedback to us, to the DFE, because actually what we want is to hear from the schools and how it's, and is it effective, and are we supporting them in the way that they thought that we would be supporting them.
Thank you for bringing me back into speed again, Erica.
That's all right.
Really helpful. So you're offering case study here and support for schools to put a programme together so that schools can meet the demands of the DFE, which is to put this policy back in place. And I imagine that you've talked about National Star and Neil Beck, who orchestrated that training opportunity, because I know that was something important you wanted to say.
Yep, so over the summer, I was asked if I would work with National Star and Neil Beck, who leads for the Demonstrator School for there. And we have kind of put together a training package, and we have these accessible Tech Thursdays. So My Twitter handle will be sent out after this, and if anyone, my email address is there, but I kind of advertise this quite a bit on Twitter, as does Neil, and we tried to break it down. Neil came up with a really great schedule of how to break assistive technology down into certain areas. This half term we've been looking at access, so I very kindly asked Julia to provide a short video for our text-to-speech webinar. And again, we have a YouTube channel, so you can refer back to those as many times as you want. And it was about getting as much information around products that we have used ourselves, as opposed to what is just on the market. It's important to have someone who has used it kind of have that feedback, and what is the after purchase care like, what is the support like. And Neil's been fantastic, so Neil's got a wealth of knowledge, and we have been leading on these. And if you go on the Demonstrator Schools website, as of last week, we are now on the front page, so you should be able to. It's quite easy now. The SEN aspect of the Demonstrator Schools is quite accessible, and it's on the front page, so hopefully you should be able to find your way to that quite easily.
Please do find your way there. There's so much good information for you. And so Erica mentioned that Scanning Pens has been involved. We do support with training. We do support with resources. It's a text-to-speech school, text-to-speech technology that will convert text to speech. Sounds really simple, doesn't it? Discreetly. And it might be something that your learners are interested in. So I'm going to just pop a poll there to find out if you might be interested in more information about Scanning Pens parent trials, or trials for your school. I would be more than happy to talk to you if you are interested in this particular technology. So absolutely fine for you to get in contact with myself, or go to scanningpens.co.uk to have a look at our toolbox of support around Scanning Pens text to speech support. What I would say to you is this is part of a huge toolbox of technologies that are open for you to explore and to use. And the role of the Demonstrator Schools is to signpost and support you to see what tools are going to work for your setting, in your children, in your environment. And they will do that well for you. And Scanning Pens along the way is here to provide additional training support if you need that, and also to Demonstrator Schools who might be tuning in and thinking, actually I could do with that help. In the same way that we have supported Erica and her team, we are happy to support any team to do that, because at the moment the important thing is that we try and overcome these challenges of supporting children who are in these learning bubbles and who aren't necessarily getting the one-to-one support that they might have done previously. I think that's a huge challenge for us all at the moment, and one that's causing us to scratch our heads, because we know as SEN professionals we desperately want to get in and help our young people, and actually there are some barriers that haven't been there before that we're now trying to find ways to overcome. So a scanning pen might be one of many tools that you might be interested in exploring.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate, and I think that's the beauty of the Demonstrator School project, is that actually we have invited lots of different suppliers for different webinars based on their specialism. So, and also looking at the features of the technology you've already got in school. So when we look at text to speech and dictation, you know, the features within Google Docs, within Microsoft and Immersive Reader, there's lots of equipment you will already have in your schools, and it's about, are you using it to its full functionality really to get the optimum and to create, you know, we haven't got TAs that can move between classrooms as freely anymore because of the bubble restrictions. So using something like text to speech, or we did one last week on physical kit, it's just about how can we get those students to be as independent as possible. And actually we look at it, I think this has been accelerated because of lockdown, but actually we want to promote independence with our learners within our curriculum offer anyway. So there's lots and lots of webinars, and they're quite short, they're only about 40 minutes, and it kind of, I think myself and Neil, whilst we're both specialist provision, we come at it from very different perspectives, so hopefully we offer quite a well-rounded insight for you.
I think that's really helpful. Let's talk about your successes with the EdTech Demonstrator School programme as a service provider to SEN teachers, Erica. This is your chance to say all the fabulous things that you've been doing and the successes that you've had. So share them, because we want to know.
Thank you. I think Julie, she's always very supportive of us and definitely of the demonstrator programme. But I think some of the successes has been supporting not only our schools but supporting parents as well. So actually equipping schools with the knowledge of how can we support parents of our students with high need who didn't set out to be teachers, and when they're at home they will be teacher and nurse and mum and dad and physio, and actually what does a remote learning offer for them look like? How can we engage them? We've covered things like the how to keep students engaged if they've got concentration issues, and the kind of the length of the sessions, and varying our different delivery options, and how really we can offer a meaningful remote learning offer, not just for, I had conversations with our head teacher very early on, and we agreed that actually just logging on wasn't enough. How are we monitoring that impact and that engagement, so that our students are getting even just half the kind of experience that they would get in schools, because obviously it's a very challenging and quite distressing time for them. Lots of support about how to manage annual reviews with remote teams, lots of training around accessibility, as I mentioned, of platforms that you're already comfortable with, how to deliver. We did a whole session about how to we've got a session, coming up on Thursday about how to deliver remote therapy. So our specialist speech and language therapist has been able to completely change her approach and actually shift the focus from her being the facilitator to our parents are now facilitating their child's therapy with our specialist speech and language therapist, Sarah, there remotely to support, but so that parents, they're not on the outside looking in on how the therapist is doing it. They are the key facilitator within that session, and I think it's been brilliant to carry that into the home as well. I think that's been really successful. And looking at how to manage our bubble. So how are we using technology so that our children and our staff can stay in their bubble, stay safe, still access the things they need to be doing? How can we develop staff CPD in a way that they are comfortable? I think we've addressed all these so far. And last night we did a session as joint as a consortium, and it was about how do we engage with the wider community, because there's such, I know being in schools, there's very much that mentality of it's business as usual and we want to do as much as possible, but then we are mindful, obviously, of the restrictions that we've got. So we did 5 tips from each school, which again were very different perspectives on how useful tips to keep things going as normal. So how do you do annual reviews? How do you do transitioning new pupils into school? How are we going to run our Christmas concert? How are we going to run our enterprise week? So it's giving those real life tips, which I hope people find useful. And we've done a lot of work on different platforms. I mean, I thought I knew quite a few of the platforms, but I've been blown away by how many are actually out there. We personally use Seesaw in the way that many schools might use Class Dojo or Tapestry or Google Meet. And we use Seesaw as a way of keeping in touch with our families and pupils through lockdown. So they all have it on their iPads or their laptops or their phones. Parents have it on their phones. And actually that is a way of our teachers, they were setting work on there. They were having pupils feed back to them. Pupils would take a snapshot of their work, send it to the teacher and get that direct feedback, which was really important. And not only were we using it as a platform for setting that content, but actually the data we could pull off could tell us which schools, which parents and families were struggling to support their child to engage, and actually for a variety of reasons. And we would then increase the amount of work packs and physical sensory resources that we would send home. So it was really essential not only to get the information out there, but to give that information back to us on who we needed to target and support a little bit more. Because again, we would hold Zoom meetings for staff, for families. We would do whole class reading through that, because just to support that emotional well-being, that mental health, because it's quite an intimidating and a challenging time for any parent to do it. I mean, for my own child learning at home, it was quite challenging, and she has no additional needs. So it was about the safeguarding of our children and families was very much at the forefront of our mind, and technology gave us the tools to kind of monitor that. I think Julia might have a poll.
Hey, well, I don't know if it's trying to launch polls that's causing me a problem.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to leave it all well alone.
Okay. Okay.
I'm going to leave it in the very capable hands of Francis. There we are. So it looks like we're at the closing thoughts. I'm sorry I've dropped out a couple of times. So I'm guessing, Erica, just while I was disappeared, that you've talked about the learning platforms, that you've mentioned what you suggest to connect home to school and make that a comfortable platform for parents to use, because engagement has got to come from our parents in order for us to be successful with our young people. And the ones that you mentioned, and I know that we talked to each other about, do create some very easy use platforms. So there are some polls here, that will enable you to gain more information. I mentioned that I do presentation work for Succeed with Dyslexia. At the moment, it's Dyslexia Awareness Month. There are podcast webinars, free CPDs. If you would like to receive that information, we'd be delighted to send it to you. Or if you'd like to find out how your school or family can go red, we would love to do that with you as well. We've got information packs that are available online. There's the fantastic campaign that I just want to make sure you're aware of. And likewise, if you're interested in Scanning Pens information or want to contact me, Julia at scanningpens.com. I'll be happy to talk to you about training. And Erica, you were just marvellous. Thank you. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Julia.
I'm sure.
Thanks, Francis.
You're welcome. I'm sure everybody now knows that you're available and that there is a brilliant Demonstrator Schools program that can be supporting them in, the tricky times that we're in. So I hope we brought the answers and suggestions that we promised to you.
Thank you both so much. I think there's so many great resources that you've signposted to that everyone listening today and everyone listening on demand as well will be able to access in their own time. So I think thank you so much for just pointing out all of this additional help that people can access, and for a fantastic presentation. Sorry about those connection issues there and a couple of the polls as well. But I think what might be a good idea is, if you are interested in finding out more about Scanning Pens, about getting your free trial, about hearing more from the Demonstrator Schools program, maybe if you just pop a message in the chat, and then we can make sure that you will get that information to you. So just pop a note in there and we'll make sure you receive some exciting information about all of that. And we've had some great questions come in. Thank you, everyone. There's still time to get more of your questions in if you would like. But I'll just kick off with, we've had a couple of questions about whether the Demonstrator project is accessible for independent schools. Is that the case?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think register your interest. Everyone, I can't recommend the program enough. It's free support. It's very much personalised to the needs of your school. If you feel that actually you're paired with the school and it has happened, and and we welcome that kind of feedback. If you feel that you're paired with a school that you think actually maybe it's not the best school to support me, you can take that back to LGFL and they are more than happy to they will be assigned to a different school if you need. So I've had some schools come to me because they're a special school, and actually when we've unpicked it, they needed more specific support around the Teams platform. So again, I'm very fortunate that I've got 2 mainstream schools within our consortium, so I will hand it over to them, but then they're always available to come back to me if they need to. They don't need to re-refer. So we will, and it doesn't have to be long-term support. It might be a couple of weeks of, it might be a half term that you need support with us, and we will kind of set you up on. Sometimes it can just be talking to someone and helping you map out a bit of a vision, and then it might be a case of it's giving you some pointers to discuss with your SLT or your leadership, and you might feel that as a school you've kind of got a plan already there. For some schools, they might need a bit of help on what does that plan look like. So I created a pathways document that I've shared with my supported schools, and they've gone away, and it's and I broke it down to different levels. So, what is the bronze pathway? What are we expecting our TAs to do? What are then the silver was what are we expecting maybe our HLTAs or our teachers to be doing? And then that silver bronze, silver, and then the gold pathway is what are we expecting our SLT to be committed to, because it does need, we know that if you're trying to bring around whole school change, you really need your senior leadership on board. So I've done a webinar that's going to be coming out after half term, and it's about how to develop that EdTech strategy in your schools. So please keep an eye on our YouTube and website for those.
Great stuff.
They're all free.
Fantastic. And again, if anyone's watching from an independent school today and wants to find out how they can get involved, please do pop a note in the chat and we'll make sure you get some information about that. Another question here that I have got in is a question for you, Erica. What has been your experience in working with parents so that they can support their children with SEND? And that's quite a broad question.
Yeah, I think what we tend to do is give resources that we know are effective to the schools, and they will roll out. So I've been supporting a great special school on the Isle of Wight, and it was about how to use communication devices at home. So Sarah, our speech and language therapist, she created a lovely resource. We then shared it with the school, and they sent it home to all their parents, which was brilliant. So they're getting that information direct from a speech and language therapist who's got that experience. And again, if there are devices such as scanning pens that can be the trials for parents, so it's kind of directing them to equipment that we know is useful, we know is easy. Having the YouTube channel, I think, is really good because it's that consistent message to school, to parents. Anybody can access those, and they can refer back to it as many times as they want. They don't need to be, conscious that they're asking too many questions, and it's just kind of just offering, because we need to kind of get that information out to them as parents, because actually, effectively, when their children are at home, they are also teachers. So I think having the access to the same kind of videos is really important for our parents at the moment, because I don't think they ever signed up to be a teacher, unless we've got parents that are actually teachers. But I think these times are very, it was thrust upon them, and they've done such a great job. And my experience is parents have really taken it and run with it. So I'm really proud of all parents.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And maybe I'll just have one last quick question before we need to close up here. Someone has requested if there are any good free speech to text tools that you know of that you might be able to advise on.
We have a whole session coming up on this on our Accessible Tech Thursdays. But feel free, I put my email address at the top of the chat box. If you scroll to the very top, and I know, Francis, you're going to send them out, but we can talk about this in more detail, because it might be that I put you in touch with a speech and language therapist as well to answer some of those questions. So hopefully we'll have lots of ongoing conversation and relationships following this webinar today.
Fantastic. And as Erica just mentioned, we'll be sending out loads of information of how you can get in contact with everyone, more, for example, the webinars that you can watch. So keep an eye out in your inbox in the next coming days to receive those exciting tips there. Thank you so much, Erica and Julia, for your time today and for sharing all of your knowledge. It's been a fantastic webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the lovely comments, folks. It really encourages us and spurs us on to do more for you, and we will be in touch. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
True. The SEN community really are great and so friendly. And I think we're all in the same boat, and we just want to help each other as much as possible. So anything we can do, just get in touch with us.
Definitely. I find the same. It's so nice. I was just saying to Julia and Erica before, the atmosphere that happens in these webinars is really nice. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We'd also love to see your comments on Twitter and on Facebook. We now have Instagram as well. If you'd like to give us a follow, you can find us at SEN Show UK. Julia is at Julia Clouter. Erica is at Erica Smith 2019, and Scanning Pens are at Scanning Pens. And please do use the hashtag SEN Show Series, and we will give you a retweet there. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We have another session at 2 p.m. with Juliet Taylor from SEBDA, which is going to be on supporting the effects of loss and trauma for children and young people with SEND. So another very important session there with lots of learnings. But thank you again both so much for your time. Thanks everyone for attending, and have a great day.